If you want Colts talk all year long, you're in the right place.
Fires it upfield, caught over the middle. Michael Pittman Jr., there he goes! He's at the 40, he's at the 30, slips out of a tackle, 20, 10, 5, touchdown! Michael Pittman Jr. takes it 75 yards to the house. Big run, angling left, 40, he's at the 30, down the near sideline, 20, 15, 10, 5, touchdown! Jonathan Taylor, a 49-yard gallop to pay dirt.
In the Indiana Union Construction Industry radio studio, let's get the podcast started.
Welcome into the official Colts podcast. As usual, Miss Larra Overton is here. We have a jam-packed show, even though it's the offseason. It's a good one. JJ Stankevitz, you're also here, but I got to start with LO because I think there was something special going on in the Tucker Overton house yesterday. Give me the Eclipse for you and your husband, what you guys do.
Oh,
Tell me
I
about
was
it.
here. I was working.
You were working, so you
didn't see it.
didn't
It was local
see
pro day, baby.
I thought maybe
No,
Tugboat
I did.
and you
No,
went down
I
to the
watched
White
it.
River.
I watched it from out here on the practice field.
Did you?
Yeah.
And?
Oh, it was awesome. It was great because everyone from the football side, all the coaches were out there, training staff, equipment.
Glasses?
Yeah, threw the glasses on and, watched the whole deal. And I will admit, I didn't get the big hubbub. I was just like, okay, everyone's like, people are making such a big deal. You know, Good Morning America is out at the Speedway and people have traveled all this way to get in. And I'm like, I didn't totally grasp all of it. I was like, okay, this seems like a big deal. And I was like, supportive of if that's what you want to do. That's great. That's nice that people. And then it happens and I'm like, this is unreal. So I was delayed in terms of my appreciation of the event, but it was very cool to see, to watch it just right out here.
Pretty cool. Yeah, pretty cool, actually.
Yeah, because football doesn't stop. Football does not stop for the Eclipse.
Local pro day? No, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It's coming. You have kids in this situation. How was it a educational experience for the Stankevitz?
A little bit. My dad is very into this. He's always had a passion for astronomy. My uncle, his brother, same thing. So we had probably 4 telescopes set up that had cameras. That one was doing a time lapse, one was taking still photos. My uncle flew a drone up. It was a big production.
That is a big
My parents had probably 25, 30 people over to their house.
So it was essentially just an event for everyone to get to play with their toys.
Yes,
Yeah.
correct.
Yeah.
Right. But they're
Great.
fun toys.
Yeah.
But my boys were, they're 4. So we were very militant about please don't look up without your glasses on. So we're just hovering over them most of the time. And hey, do you want to go look at the sun? No. Okay, fine. Just don't look up. But then when about 5 minutes to totality, they're kind of bugging me because they haven't had a nap and they're outside. They're a little bit cranky. So can you play pickleball with me? Can you throw the ball?
5
Can you
minutes
do this?
out?
5 minutes out.
Okay.
And I was just like, you know what? Let's give them our phones. We don't usually do that, but just go watch Blippi or whatever. So they're sitting there watching Blippi, and all of a sudden it gets dark, and they look up and they're kind of like, huh. Right back to watching. Yeah.
Who's Blippi?
You don't need to know.
I don't
he's
know.
a large.
It's the
He's
goofy
not.
guy with glasses?
Yeah, he's a man-child who knows how to operate heavy machinery.
Yeah, for the kids.
Yeah,
So he
for the
liked it.
kids,
All
yeah.
right. Got it.
Yeah.
Okay. Just curious. I hadn't heard Blippi, but hey, to each their own. It was a great experience.
Yeah.
I was lucky enough to go through 2 of them. I was living in Nashville in 17.
Oh, yeah.
They
Oh,
had
wow.
that one there. It was completely different from this one because that one was complete darkness, like 3 a.m. in the morning, complete darkness in the middle of the afternoon. Here, it was sort of dark.
Yeah.
There was sort of thing, but it
Yeah.
was still quite amazing.
It also, what shocked me, I was expecting the darkness and all that, how cold it got.
Yes.
Which, obviously, the
sun goes down,
sun
if you
heats,
will. Yeah,
the earth and all of that. So really not, such a huge surprise. But really just, you almost felt it before you saw it.
Yeah.
A little bit.
And the shadows got really weird.
cool.
And,
The coloring, yeah,
But
it was
but also then you realize when 95% of the sun is covered by the moon and even just 5% is shining through, how much light that is.
It is. Yeah,
That was pretty
incredible.
impressive.
That was fun. Hey, I was weeding the garden at 1:30, and I was
Good for you.
handed a nice tea at about 3 o'clock, and then me and my gal watched the rest of it, and then back to weeding the garden.
Yeah.
So
That's
it was a
great.
good day overall.
Yeah.
And speaking of good days, not a bad day here today. Elo, I'm going to start with you. big news, obviously, and it was released today that the Colts signed Julian Blackman back to this defensive secondary. And we've been talking for a few weeks now since free agency. What's the latest? He went around shopping a little bit around the NFL, but Chris Ballard and Shane Steichen said, hey, good to have this man back, and it's important for this defense.
And that was one of those next big pieces that you wanted to see what happened when there was that big initial wave of the guys who re-signed and came back on new contracts and all of that. And then it was, this is the next one. And it's something that Julian will talk about kind of in terms of exploring what the safety market is. And year to year, it's really interesting in how market value impacts position groups differently. And, Julian did explore some options out there and ultimately decided to come back to Indianapolis, mutual interest, of course. And he'll go into exactly why. But one thing is you look at individually and the career year that Julian had, the ability that he had to play almost every game, something else we'll get into, and the impact that will have on the continuity of what is a very young Colts secondary will be so helpful to that group to have him there, especially when, he transitioned positions last year. So this will all be incredibly impactful for that group to take some pretty significant strides that, quite honestly, they need to take, right? With what that group and, some of the numbers that they put up last year, solid, but definitely they have their sights set on improving upon that and as a position group playing to a higher level.
Well, that's definitely a comfort for Gus Bradley and Shane Steichen, the importance of having this veteran back here, because there were other free agents that were out there that people were talking about.
Yeah, well, and I think the point that Julian made when he did a media availability with the local media here was that the safety market was kind of like the running back market last year. But like you said, Larra, it fluctuates year to year. Look at what Saquon Barkley got this year versus what none of those guys got last year. So for Julian, I think there still is quite a bit of motivation here to know that, hey, you go out, you have a good year again in 2024. There could be that payday that you maybe hoped you were going to get this year could be out there next year, because the safety market could flip, and next year you could see more of what we saw from the running backs this year. So you never know, and it stinks for him that he hit the market in a year where a lot of other safeties hit the market and a lot of veterans got cut. And by the way, a lot of those veterans still haven't found a team yet.
Sure.
So, while it took Julian a little while to get settled somewhere, he's not the only one. And it's a tough market out there for safeties, but absolutely thrilled to have him back in the back of that defense.
A lot of those Colts fans.
He's just so darn fun.
Yeah, he is a good
selfishly
guy.
From our perspective.
Yeah.
I mean, and we have a plethora of guys who are just great to deal with, all around. But he is so dynamic and just, personable and gregarious and all of those things that just he injects such a good presence into the building.
He is, and it's, again, football speaking alone, I know what you're talking about off the field, so impressive of a man, but football alone, the Colts and Chris Ballard, the NFL fans and Colts fans out there and keyboard GM saying, Ballard hasn't done anything in free agency. Well, actually, he has. He's done quite a bit. Listen, earlier today, actually, Julian was in here. He had a chance to sit down, chat with JJ and Larra. This is the newly signed safety.
All right, JJ Stankevitz here with Larra Overton on the official Colts podcast, and we are joined by Colts safety Julian Blackman, recently today re-signed with the team. First, congrats, man.
Thank you.
I know it probably, good to have you back.
It's great to be back.
I know it probably wasn't the easiest process to get to this point. What was this free agency like for you, going through it for the first time and having it now wind up with you back here with the Colts?
I think that it was a lot of just trying to take emotion out of it and just take it for what it was, which, this is, a business first when it came to that point. And that's when it kind of got real for me, and I started to understand, that I can't really take it personal. Just understand how the market works and how free agency works and how, it can either boom or, it can crash. And for my position, it got a little bit difficult there for a little bit. But, I was able to have the support of my family, able to have a great agent who did a great job. And so for me, I just try to focus on, every day what I could control, because I couldn't control the market. I couldn't control, the business side of it, but I could control, waking up every day and going to work out, being with my family, being with my fiance. I just got engaged. So, yeah,
Big few weeks.
Those were things that I was able to focus on. So it was really good, overall.
We have seen a number of guys who have re-signed, returned to the organization, those who explored free agency, and then those like Zaire Franklin who extended their contracts. For you, what was the biggest draw to return to this team when you saw how much continuity there was going to be on this roster?
Honestly, exactly that. All of the guys that I love came back, and just for the team to bring everyone back, it just kind of showed what they wanted, and how great the organization is, and also just how much the teammates of mine love being here. Obviously, when you get all of us to come back that had been playing here for a while, it's one of those things where it's more than just football, but it's family here, and so seeing everybody else sign here, it was another reason why I was so excited to come back. Obviously, I think that it's one of those things where I tried not to, look too much about what everybody else is doing. And, but with that thought in mind, I was talking to Kenny every day. We were talking every day about how, we're going to try to make it work. And unfortunately, we were able to. So.
Last season, there was a lot of talk about how young the secondary was. You and Kenny, two of the leaders, the two longest tenured among those in that group. What strides can your group, your room of DBs, take this year with you returning, Kenny returning, and then another year, for guys like Jalen and Juju?
I think it's just that chemistry alone. And it's something that's really important, especially when you want to take the next step. It's, familiarity. And so for us to be back, that was our goal, and to also just try to just show these guys how much we care about their progression is by being there with them and trying to help them any way that we can. Because like you said, Kenny and I were the longest tenured guys, and so we felt like it was important for us to continue to help the younger guys, because they need some guys who have been through it, that they can talk to and they can resonate with. And so we thought that was important, and we want to be able to take the next step, and we felt like that was one of the most important things, was us being back.
I was going to say, with that continuity, what can that do for this group? Because now you're going into year 3 with Gus. And I think about when you came into the league, that group is going into year 3 with Matt Eberflus. Mm-hmm. And you kind of had that year 3, year 4 spike in takeaways and really becoming that top level defense. Do you kind of feel like you can do the same thing now with Gus, but you being the veteran helping out some of the younger guys in that defense?
Absolutely, man. Because like you said, everybody understood the defense with Flus, and now that we're getting to the point of this is our 3rd year with the same defense. That means a lot, man. Not having to change too much. Obviously, you want to go in and fine tune things that didn't work last year, but the fact that we all kind of understand exactly what the coaches want, and also the coaches trust us, man. It's gotten to the point where they talk about us and they try to see where we fit the best, and that helps a lot.
You had a career year last year, 88 tackles, 4 picks. I think you set career highs in TFLs. It was all over the place, career high. What about this defense kind of unlocked some stuff for you? And I know obviously you're playing closer to the line as a strong safety, but just within this defense, what sort of unlocked it for you?
Yeah, like I said, I think it's just the coaches, first of all, trusting that this was the best move for me, was to move to strong safety, because it just fits my role better. It fits my personality better. I'm more of a talkative person. I like to be around the ball, and obviously I like to take the ball away. And so that strong safety position in this defense specifically is more of that role. And so for me, it was kind of easy for me to just move over there and start making those plays. And also, like I said, the relationships that I have with the coaches allowed me to play free and to feel like I could go out there and just play and see what I saw and make plays.
I know a big priority for you last season was staying on the field, staying healthy. You've battled through so much. You were coming off the injury when you were drafted. I know that was a huge motivator for you. When you did have a season like you had last year, how difficult was it to not be able to play that final game, and then maybe to feel like you have some unfinished business here?
It was hard because I think that everybody knows that as long as I have been in the league, I haven't been able to play every single game. And so that's one of those things that's on my mind for these next coming up years, because it's hard when you get to the NFL. You obviously know that some things just happen, freak accidents happen, and so for me, it's kind of one of those things that I do want to finish this out. You know, I want to be one of those guys that can be on the field and reliable and available throughout the whole season, and so that's one of those things that's been on my mind, and I want to do everything that I can for this team to take the next step, and I think that it's important for me to play all 17.
Big life events for you. Not only did you re-sign with the team that drafted you, you mentioned you got engaged. It was just your daughter's birthday the other day. How do you celebrate all of this? Does it get any better to be Julian Blackman right now?
No, honestly, it's been such a blessing these past 2 weeks. There's been a lot going on, and I think that it's been easy just to find my footing and just to enjoy the days as they come. And so, that's one thing that we like to talk about in my family, honestly, right now, is just to be where our feet are. And you try to take them and not take them too high and not get too low about things, but just try to stay in the moment when they are there, but let them pass when they do.
Do you reflect, though, on the journey that kind of got you to this point? I mean, getting a second contract in the NFL is no guarantee for any player, whether you're a first-round pick or a seventh-round pick, and you got one now. Did you take any time to reflect just on how you got here?
Definitely. I think that as soon as I realized that I was getting to that point of signing a second contract, I kind of just got grateful, to be honest, because we all know how hard it is just to make it to that point. And so for me, I just started going back to my rookie year and just looking at the things that, shaped me into being a guy that could make it to the next step, which is a second contract. And it was a beautiful thing. It was really a beautiful thing. It's an emotional thing. So, I'm just grateful to get another chance, to be honest.
What were some of those things you reflected on? Were they plays? Were they relationships, conversations?
I think a little bit of all of those things that you just said, honestly. The relationships that I had, who helped me along the way, and the conversations that I've had with guys who have gotten to this point also, which is, a lot of them tell me, this is going to be one of those processes where it's going to be difficult, it's going to be beautiful, everything all together. You just got to take it for what it is and try to not take it too personal. And so I think that for me, I was just able to really take what people were telling me and try to really understand it. But then, when you go through it, it's like one of those things like, all right, like it's not as easy as they were telling me, but you find a way.
All right. Well, Julian Blackman, thank you for joining us here. Congratulations again and welcome back to the Colts.
Thank you guys for having me. Excited to be back. Let's go.
All right, continuity. That's the word I'm looking for.
That's the word. That's
continuity.
The word of the day.
Continuity. Hey, take a gamble out here. Who's starting opposite of Julian?
Oh, that's a good one.
Could be somebody who's not on this roster yet.
It could be, but oh man, you know what I want to do is I want to throw the dark horse out there.
Okay.
I want to throw Daniel Scott out there.
Scott,
because Chris Ballard multiple times this offseason has made mention about how impressed he was with Daniel Scott, 5th-round pick out of Cal last year, tore his ACL during OTAs. I think you're probably looking. I mean, look, Nick Cross, Rodney Thomas II, Ronnie Harrison Jr. Those guys all have starting experience. We'll see how everything kind of shakes out with what positions they're going to play. Julian, you figure, is going to be that strong safety in this defense. It's figuring out who that free safety is, that deep guy back there.
We will find that out. It's going to be fun. Hey, don't forget, coming up, we're going to go to your mailbag questions. We've been talking about this for a couple of weeks. If you want to know, it's easy. Follow us on Twitter X. You can get your question answered right here. But Anthony Costanzo, the stalwart, the anchor of the offensive line for so many years, obviously with Andrew Luck in his first year here, the left tackle Anthony Costanzo is going to join us later. You and I had a chance to catch up with him. So
it's a week from today. We're going to have him on the pod.
That is
the conversation
on the pod.
you had.
Yeah,
a week from today.
That is on the pod that week. You just caught me in there because I was throwing to this thing at the end of this one, but we are using it at the next one. Hey, it happens in live podcasting, Colin. I don't care what it is.
That's what the folks in the biz call a tease.
Sometimes I'm in the next week when I should be in this week, but that's the story of my life. Anyway, Anthony Costanzo coming up in next week's, but obviously thanks to you both for the Julian Blackman interview, and it's going to be fun watching what he does. So now readers always right, as I like to call mailbag time, and we're just going to go through the list, and I'm going to throw this this stuff at you. I'm going to be the mediator on this or moderator. This is from Lucas, who's a Dutch Colts fan. How do you guys feel about the new marketing rights in Europe, and what specific things can the European fans, us, this is him saying, because obviously he's from either Holland or Germany somewhere, Dutch Colts fan, but he wants to know what specific things can us European fans expect out of this agreement.
I thought for a second you were going to say he was from Dutch. I actually met him at the Colts party in
this guy right here,
Frankfurt.
Yeah,
real nice guy.
Lucas is awesome.
He's got a 6 setup in his
also give him
his
a
back
follow,
patio. Yes,
for sure.
Great follow. He's got a 6 setup. It's like Colts Cave. Lucas, correct me if I'm wrong on that.
At Dutch Colts fan, by the way, if you want to follow him.
It is Colts fan. And he is the number one Colts fan in the Low Countries of Europe. I would have to say. I think the marketing rights are awesome. That the Colts are now kind of expanding their footprint into Germany, into Austria, obviously with the Bernard Reimann tie-in. Just seeing that crowd last year, not just at the game in Frankfurt, but just the energy around football in Germany. Man, that is a country that gets it. That is an area of the world that gets football, and I'm excited that the Colts can do some stuff, more marketing stuff over there. They can have more of a legit presence in Germany, in Austria, and hopefully, maybe. I don't know if it leads to more games on TV, more accessible stuff, but Europeans are also they're very good at finding ways to watch games. There are packages you can buy and stuff like that. So very resourceful Colts fans over there.
Hopefully the Colts are all of Germany and Austria. What do you think? What are some of the perks of this agreement, Elo?
Well, you're going to see just a larger footprint of the Colts. When you think about how Jacksonville has somewhat taken over London, right?
It's theirs.
It's pretty much theirs. Now you can start to see a team like the Colts expand their presence and have an ownership of a fan base over there, rather than it's just, every handful of years you're going to parachute in and play in a different, city in Europe or play somewhere else. Now you're actually going to have an established presence, and it's going to be something that is more routine than just every few years that you can plan for a game that's going to be played at Wembley Stadium.
Yeah, it's exciting.
The Colts have never had a home game played overseas.
Maybe that'll change sooner than later. Who knows?
Well, the NFL is going to make sure it changes.
Yeah, absolutely.
It will, yeah.
All right, we're moving on. Chris Phillips at C_Phillips_13. I don't know if that's a T.Y. Hilton reference. I don't know. But he asked, is this to end? I think it's coming out of what we talked about with Chris Ballard signing a lot of in-house free agents. Chris Phillips said, is the team putting too much pressure on Anthony Richardson to succeed in order for the entire team to be successful?
Yeah, I thought this was a really good question because it is kind of you could go a couple of ways with your quarterback where you try to surround him, you spend all this money and you surround him with guys to see if he's good or not. But I think the Colts have already seen enough from Anthony to believe that he's good. What I think about is when in 2018, the Bears didn't know if Mitch Trubisky was good yet. So they went out and they spent all this money on Allen Robinson, Trey Burton, Taylor Gabriel. And within about a year, 2 of those 3 contracts were like, why'd you do that?
Right.
But it's because you felt like you had to see if he was good or not because you didn't have the evaluation of him. I think even though he only played 4 games, I think the Colts have the evaluation of Anthony to believe this guy can raise everyone else. So I don't think it's too much on Anthony because this team believes he can be a driving force of a successful season.
Larra, the pressure that is on an NFL quarterback, period, is through the roof. I don't care where you're playing. Pressure of a rookie quarterback as well, which is arguably his second rookie season with the limited sample size we saw last year. Pressure on this kid outside of normal pressure. Does that exist with him coming off of this injury-plagued first year?
I think there's always too much pressure on quarterbacks, especially young quarterbacks. I mean, there's just a ton, especially now with the way that there is expanded investment from fantasy football and, obviously people who are investing in, these type of things individually. So I think back to something different sport, but I believe it was Tyrese Halliburton who was talking about some of the pressure that is on professional athletes, that you forget that they're people. People will come after you because you didn't cover their bets and whatnot. And so people want to attack you on social media and do these different things. Like, it's a wild landscape right now in terms of pressure in general on most every position and on so many professional athletes. Obviously, they're very well paid and all of those things to somewhat compensate that. But I think it's kind of an interesting conversation in that there are a lot of factors that amplify now the pressure on these players than even there have been previously. Now, with Anthony specifically, I don't think that the team is putting necessarily that added pressure on him. I think it's an adequate amount, given it's the most important position in all of professional sports. I think Anthony is uniquely equipped to handle that pressure, and I think to some degree welcomes it and uses it as fuel and as motivation. But I just think that there has to be, to some degree, a bit of grace given to many of these young quarterbacks. So many people want quarterbacks to step in and be a franchise savior right away. And this is not a game that is played, within a vacuum. It's not one guy. There are 11 on the field and all. So I just think that you want to, in terms of watching his progress over the next few months, yes, be excited, have high hopes, have high expectations of what this team can achieve, but then also, tailor that with a bit of, hey, he's still growing, he's still developing. We're in this for the long haul. Mm-hmm. He doesn't have to win over the fan base in 2024. This is a long-term commitment to his growth as a quarterback, and you want to see him playing the next 10 years at a consistently high
marathon,
level.
Not a sprint, and that's probably fitting when it comes to Anthony Richardson. So a lot more happening, and if you guys are checking social media like we are, obviously, all signs are good there. Saw him slinging the football down in Florida recently, so the arm is coming around, and hopefully, as Anthony says, knock on plastic, that he's ready to roll when obviously this training camp starts. So let's keep moving on. We've got readers always right, and we just talked about Anthony Richardson and the pressure. Let's go to Jason Sanders at HTX Hoosier with the new emergency quarterback rule. JJ, help me out on this one because I'm already confused.
That's what I wanted to
get at. With the new emergency quarterback rule, do you see the Colts going with only 2 quarterbacks on the active roster? I don't know how this makes sense, and I'm not bagging you. I'm just saying if there's an emergency quarterback that doesn't count against the active roster, there'll always be an emergency quarterback.
So the previous emergency quarterback rule that was in place last year was that your third quarterback, your emergency quarterback, had to be on the 53. So that was always Sam Ehlinger. Until Anthony got hurt. Then he was the number 2, and the Colts didn't have an emergency quarterback. This year, if things do shake out the way that the Colts are expecting with Anthony Richardson and Joe Flacco, that probably could lead to maybe Sam Ehlinger is on the practice squad as a emergency third quarterback. But I'm not doubting whatever Sam Ehlinger can do in his career. Mm-hmm. This guy he's so smart. He knows exactly what to do with the football on every play, and he's worked really diligently to increase his arm strength. I had a really interesting conversation with him about neural pathways and all the work that he's doing. It's really intricate. It's really intense work that he's putting in. So whether he's a practice squad guy for the Colts or maybe he winds up a backup for the Colts if something were to happen or he goes somewhere else, whatever it is, whatever his career is, it's going to be good. I just know that. But with this rule now that you can be on the practice squad and be the emergency third quarterback, that probably does leave more teams to say, we're only going to carry 2 quarterbacks on our 53-man roster.
It's also dangerous, though, because then that person on a practice squad can be plucked by another team.
Right.
So it's a little precarious.
Which is why I was kind of it could be that he winds up a backup somewhere else if some team says, we want that guy here. We'll sign you to our active roster. That is something that you do risk when you put a guy in the practice squad.
Yes or no to both of you? There is competition for Sam Ehlinger this year as the third string / emergency quarterback going into camp. What do you think?
Possible, but not likely.
Yeah, that's probably fair.
Possible, but not likely.
The Colts signed Joe Flacco to be their backup quarterback. Right. That's what they did, and Anthony Richardson's here to be the starter. So. Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. Let's move on. Unstable Blues on Twitter X. Unstable Blues. LO, let's start with you. More likely for the Colts to trade up or trade down in this upcoming NFL draft? Great question.
What do we know about Chris Ballard? I like them picks.
Yeah.
We know that for sure. I think that they will entertain options to do both things over these next few weeks leading into the draft. I think all options are on the table at this point as we sit here on April 9th. I would say my concern with moving up is what do you have to give up to move up? Like, of what you have internally, what you have at your disposal, the assets that you have, what would it cost? And that's my biggest concern in terms of moving up. That is why I tend to think that it would be more likely to move back and maybe accrue some more assets. And the Colts have been so successful in doing that in the past. Why would you not at least weigh heavily in on considering that?
This is where I think a lot of folks lose sight of what a good draft strategy is.
Yeah.
Like, it is, if you are so convinced that the guy you're trading up for is going to be a superstar, that's great. But, like, what's the fail rate of draft picks?
Right.
You could be totally convinced, and then the guy could bust for a million different reasons, right? So what the Colts have traditionally done is they've traded back and they've accrued a bunch of picks. And then when they've done that, all of a sudden you wind up with, Shaq Leonard and Braden Smith back to back in a draft. You wind up with Michael Pittman Jr. In a draft where you traded back, the year before out of the first round and got that pick that you used on Pittman. If you give yourselves more spins of the wheel, the chances are you're going to hit more of those.
Sure, more at bats.
And again, you can be so your evaluations can be so on point, and you can believe in every evaluation you have, but for whatever reason the guy doesn't work out. And if you just get more of those spins at the wheel, the chances are you're going to be right more times.
Stay there. This one's to you, JJ. Stay there. We're on the same path here. This is from our friend Ralphie Casal on YouTube. He says, do you think the Colts should draft Brock Bowers, the tight end out of Georgia, even if they have to trade up and give up a second-round pick? JJ, I want to stay with you on that. And LO, we're going to go for that because I know you love Brock Bowers. But I'm going to say this, Ralphie. I love what you're thinking. But you got to come to the table with a little more juice. I don't think this is going to be a flop of the number ones and throw in a second, and you can move up and grab a guy like Brock Bowers.
Well, it depends on where you're going to,
right? Well, are you doing it at 9? Are you doing it at 10? Or are you doing it at 13?
Right. Here's the thing, though, and this is kind of why I wanted to pair these questions together in the rundown. It's like, boy, if you are convinced that Brock Bowers, whoever, Rome Odunze, whoever it might be, that, man, like this guy's going to be a superstar in this offense, and I guarantee it, and I'm going to burn the 46th overall pick to go do that, you better be right.
But is that enough, JJ? The 46 and a flop of ones to go up that high and get that?
I mean, again, it depends on where you're going, where you're looking.
Right.
So it was more this is the philosophy of this, of like, boy, and Brock Bowers is a guy too where, we talked about this with Daniel Jeremiah at the Combine, where you have to have a plan for him. You can't just be like, he's a good player, he can come in and do whatever. It's like you got to have a targeted plan for this guy, which if the Colts were to, do something like this, they're going to have a targeted plan. But like, at this point in the calendar, right now, what's today, April 9th? Like, there is no telling what the Colts might do. There are no indications of what the Colts might do in the NFL draft. Like, the thought that the Colts could trade a second-round pick for Brock Bowers, sure, maybe not. But we have no idea. They don't have any idea right now because they're just starting the evaluation, like the heavy, figuring out what the draft board is. And there's like, I can almost guarantee it's like there hasn't been a conversation of like, hey, Chris, we should really trade a second-round pick for Brock. Like, that's not happening right now. That is something that will happen closer to the draft if that is a conversation that were to happen.
Just over 2 weeks away. Hello, what do you think? Brock Bowers is there. They have a chance to go up. What's it going to take?
I think if he's there at 15, I'm enticed.
Oh, God, yeah.
I'm a little wary of jumping up too much and giving up too much because I also have other areas where I would like the Colts to use some draft capital, and you could potentially, because of how stocked this or stacked rather, this wide receiver class is, I think you can still get really good receivers in the second round. Look at what the Colts did with Michael Pittman Jr., right? And where they were able to acquire him, where they were able to select him. I also think about the equity from the draft that's already invested in the tight end room. Kylan Granson, you have Drew Ogletree, Jelani Woods, right. All of these. Will Mallory, another draft pick. Mo, not, but the longest tenured guy of that room. So you already have a pretty stacked room. Now, Brock Bowers is a different entity among that position already, but when you're just kind of looking at where the Colts have maybe already invested some in previous draft classes, is this likely the way that they will choose to expend those resources this time?
Going to be fun. Hey, a little over 2 weeks away. Last question. It's from our friend Nick Revel. Nick Revel, maybe, 317 on Twitter. And I think I'm going to veer this towards Larra Overton, JJ.
Why? Because I have a Wikipedia page pulled up for this exact question.
Oh,
away from you.
Yeah.
LO, what are the
Hilarious.
most efficient vehicles currently in the Austrian military?
That's great. Okay. So for those of you who were not on the podcast last week, we talked about that my husband purchased
what's it called, Jeffrey?
Car.
What's
it called?
It's a Hasenv, something like that. Is it a Hasenv?
Pinsgauer.
Pinsgauer, that's right.
Collins,
Pinsgauer.
producer Collins out of Paraguay.
So it's a classic car. It was built in the 1970s.
It is pretty awesome, yeah.
Now, it is built, what I have to say, this is the caveat to it, it was built by the Austrian it was built in Austria, but it was used by like the Swiss military. So actually, I think it was heavier utilized by the Swiss military. And I don't necessarily know that it's like the efficiency, it's the reliability of it that makes it such a
if all hell breaks loose.
What miles to the gallon is that thing getting?
Oh, I'm sure
0.5.
I'm sure not great.
Armageddon happens, the end of the world. You're safe in that Austrian military.
I'd hope, but it would be really.
Right?
It's more so just kind of a fun thing. But yeah, I don't know. The thing is, when they are military vehicles, they have all of their maintenance and all the upkeep is done, and obviously there's a high priority on that. So when you have these, they're very well kept. By the military in that time. So I know that the Swiss military used them. Maybe the Austrian military as well. Where are the Von Trapps when we need them?
Oh, great call.
So,
great call.
So yeah, I should be more educated. I apologize.
We're gonna have a picture coming.
But I do very much appreciate the question, and my husband was very entertained by the fact that the Pinsgauer has made an appearance.
I'd like to put that on social media so we can get the people in Pinsgauer and find out what exactly it is that it is. So let's throw that up sometime soon. What do you say?
Yeah.
All right, guys. Give me this before we wrap up and wrap out. There are football players in this building this week. Meaning what, JJ? Start us off with what the off-season schedule is as far as these players, and obviously we're going to be able to sit down with a lot of them and talk to them about their off-season, how it's going, and what to expect in 24.
Yeah, OTA, well, not OTAs. The off-season program begins on Monday, April 15th. That is when players can be back in the building in an official capacity for the first time.
And that's all voluntary.
That's all voluntary. And it starts with conditioning and classroom work. Then it progresses to some other on-field work.
Kind of some more positional type
stuff.
Yeah,
positional type stuff. And then you get to your actual OTAs and mini camp, and that will run from about mid-May through June 6th. And then the Colts break for the summer and then come back for training camp, and we're into the season.
Rookie minicamp that's coming up not too long after the draft.
Rookie minicamp will be there.
Veteran minicamp coming up. What are you looking forward to? Although obviously kickoff to start this season is great. Last preseason game in Cincinnati, that's great. Something to look forward to. Obviously that, but just this time of year, what are you looking forward to?
Well, what I'm looking forward to is the fact that so much of this team can come back in and know exactly the expectation under Shane Steichen. Because at this time, 1 year ago, it was learning Shane, learning what the expectation, what's the standard, how are we operating as a team? All of those things, those have all been answered. So now every guy that's walking in this time of year has no question about, what the operation is going to be, what this next program is going to look like, all of those things that we really didn't know a year ago, right? Shane was still learning the roster and learning the guys at this point in time. So that's, to me, one of the most exciting aspects of this time of year is just the, complete absence of any sort of, ignorance on, what this team is going to look like and what they are expected to be under the direction of Shane Steichen.
Absolutely. Well, a lot more coming up. I want to thank everybody that wrote in today. Obviously, if you have questions, keep them coming. Doesn't matter what episode. This one, we devoted a lot to them, but we'll get to them every episode if you guys want to, leading up to the preseason and through the regular season as well. Guys, I wanted to talk about cicadas.
Cicadas?
We don't have time, but
John Cicada?
John Cicada, I want to talk about his solo career, and then I want to talk about those cicadas that are happening in like northern Indiana and southern
I didn't know.
Illinois and stuff like that.
I feel like there are 18-year cicadas every year. Whatever.
Well, I'm saying it's bad. It's
like
come back.
like Larra's attitude toward the Eclipse at first. Like, whatever. I feel like there's cicadas every year until
it really was. I was cynical about it. I was like, whatever,
Larra's like, it really was.
Where's Neil deGrasse Tyson? I don't know. Somebody tell me why this
All right.
matters.
A lot of Eclipse talk today. Maybe down the road we'll talk about the cicadas and what's happening there. But any information you want to find is available at Colts.com and, of course, the Colts Audio Network, getting you ready for this draft that's coming up a little over 2 weeks from now. It's going to be a big one for Larra Overton JJ Stankevitz. Guys, I'm saying goodbye on your behalf, so we're out of here. Sound good?
Sounds great.
Talk to you next week.